We will have an open Q&A today at the end of the presentation, during which time you are welcome to unmute your mics and ask questions. However, you are also welcome to ask questions throughout today's presentation. You can enter those questions in the chat, and one of our moderators will ensure that they are read aloud and that they are answered. So today we are so very excited to have with us Claire and Val from the Animal Welfare Institute. Claire Coughlin has extensive experience in both social services and animal advocacy. For over a decade, she specialized in evidence-based education and support services for families impacted by abuse and neglect. Claire now serves as director of the Companion Animal Program for AWI and oversees their work on the link between human and animal welfare. Val Peña, manager of the Safe Havens for Pets program for AWI, has developed the organization's unique national directory of services for individuals facing housing insecurity with pets. Additionally, Val provides direct support to people experiencing homelessness or domestic violence with pets and oversees the ongoing maintenance of the Safe Havens for Pets directory. So we are so very excited to have these two incredible women here with us today to share all about the new and exciting projects at the Animal Welfare Institute. So Claire and Val, please take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Danielle, and thank you all for coming and for having us. We are really happy to be here. Val and I have both attended many of these ourselves and are just very happy to be here as presenters today. So please, grab our contact information here. If you'd like it, I'll show it again at the end as well. As Danielle said, we are both from the Animal Welfare Institute. I direct the Companion Animal Program, which I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about before we get into kind of some of the safe sheltering specifics today. Okay. There we go. Okay, so a little bit about our companion animal program. What we do is anything that has to do with the overlap between animal and human welfare issues. So we provide a lot of the guidance around recognizing and reporting animal cruelty, a lot of research, education, and training tools that we will develop for professionals who are working in this sector. We offer the Safe Havens for Pets directory, which is what we're going to talk about today, resources for people experiencing domestic violence with pets. We also have a lot of very specific information and guidance available on our website about how to include a pet in an order of protection. 42 of the states have laws in place for inclusion of a pet in a protection order. So on our website, you can find information that is state specific. There's a guide for every single state that has this law in place that'll give step-by-step instructions for advocates, for survivors, or attorneys who are helping to apply for protection, order of protection, and how to get a pet incorporated into that person's specific state protection order. We also operate the Center for the Study of NIBR's animal cruelty data, and that is where we do a lot of research and education around animal cruelty crime trends since the addition of animal cruelty to the FBI's system, NIBR system in 2016. And we do a lot of research in particular on how those animal cruelty crimes overlap with incidents of interpersonal violence or other antisocial crimes. And then finally, what we're here to talk mostly about today is the new addition to our Safe Havens for Pets directory, which is made up of resources for pet owners who are experiencing housing insecurity or homelessness. So that's just a little bit about what we do. I'm going to kind of start with some of the background of our program. I'm not going to go too much into the statistics. I know these are some of the stats that most people in this area have seen a lot of, but just a little bit about kind of why these resources are so important and why we developed them in the first place. We know that the majority of Americans, 2/3, have pets in their families. And we also know that pets are more likely to be present in domestically violent homes. We also know that survivors or victims of interpersonal violence are less likely to to leave a dangerous situation if they cannot bring their pet with them. With the addition of recent studies, it's close to 90% have reported that their abuser has also threatened, harmed, or killed a pet. So it is no surprise why they will delay leaving that dangerous situation out of concern for their pet's safety. And then the other piece that we know and we talk a lot about is that violence does not happen in a vacuum. It is rarely directed at one household member. We're typically talking about highly volatile household systems where violence, if directed towards humans, is also directed towards animals and vice versa. Okay. So the majority of pet owners, myself included, and I would imagine almost everyone here, considers their pets to be family members. There are numerous benefits to allowing people and their pets to remain together, whether that's, through a crisis or through a housing concern. People typically or frequently turn to their pets as a source of comfort, as a source of emotional support. And some people are even more likely to disclose trauma either in the presence of or sometimes directly to a pet because they do provide that sense of stability and that sense of comfort. And then what we also know is that pets, for anyone who is displaced or in a state of crisis, pets are one of those things that can really add a sense of stability and security and normality for people who are in these stressful situations. Okay, so a little bit about what we call safe havens for pets. So safe havens for pets are sheltering resources that are in place for originally. This started as a program for survivors who are experiencing domestic violence and needing a safe place for their pets in order to seek safety for themselves. So one thing that we'll go into more, and Val will talk specifically about, but is really important to note is, at least, from how we discuss it, safe havens operate very differently from one community to the other, and they don't look the same from one community to the other. So for us, safe havens may be and often are shelters that are pet friendly, where someone who's experiencing violence or homelessness can go and can bring their pet with them. But our Safe Havens for Pets directory is also going to include a lot of other models as well. There are fostering coalitions, partnerships between animal welfare organizations and human service organizations. There are a number of vets and kenneling organizations that have volunteered their time, their space for free boarding of animals of people in crisis, specifically domestic violence. So again, depending on the needs of the person, the needs of the community, and the resources at hand, they can look quite different from one place to another. But what they all have in common is that the goal is to keep a person's beloved pet and family member safe and secure while they seek stability and safety themselves, whether that is together or on occasion temporary separation. So here's a look. This is not, this is a density map. This is a look at the safe havens for domestic violence survivors throughout the country. So we have over 1,200 programs that are listed across the country in every state. And this is just a peek at what our directory looked like this time last year. So as you can see, our entire directory, it is searchable by state. It's also searchable by zip code. And then in addition to kind of the general contact information that you're always going to find, we have a few special features that have been added in recent years here as well. You'll see we have a lot of information on program details, things like, are people and pets housed together? Is this a domestic violence shelter that is pet friendly? Is this a partnership with an animal shelter or a boarding kennel? And then you'll see kind of as an example here on the bottom, do they have relationships in place that allow for the accommodation of farm animals or horses? Because As we all know, pets are not just cats and dogs. For a lot of individuals, pets are goats and pets are pigs and pets are horses. And they have the same hesitancy about leaving those animals behind in dangerous situations as they do when it comes to their beloved cats and dogs. So the goal here is for advocates or for survivors to be able at a glance to see what the resources in their community are that might fit their needs and to make it as, simple and straightforward as possible. It's also something that we update on a very regular basis, and Val will go into it a little bit more, but it's incredibly important to us because we know people are vulnerable and in a state of crisis when they're in needing these services. So it's really important that these be up to date at all times. We Programs are not added without their permission and without us having having spoken with them, having gone through a number of standard questions and come to a conclusion that they're appropriate to include. And then we also will not, if we're unable to verify after a certain amount of time, they are removed. So we want it to be current, we want it to be up to date, and we want it to be useful for people who need it. Okay, so a little bit about domestic violence and homelessness. So what we do know, again, is that domestic violence is one of the leading causes of homelessness in the United States, especially for women and children. Abusers often take away their victims' ability to live independently, whether that's by isolating them from their support systems, controlling their finances, limiting their access to the workforce, things along those lines. Um, Ultimately, many survivors are forced to choose between staying in an unsafe situation or becoming unhoused potentially. So it's really critical that housing programs and domestic violence services work hand in hand in order to best serve families who are experiencing these types of safety and stability concerns. Okay. So this actually the National Alliance for Ending Homelessness just released last month their 2025 report on the state of homelessness. So it is a point in time count. And recently with this 2025 count, it recorded a record number of close to 800,000 unhoused individuals in the US in 2024. One thing that's incredibly important to note is that this number is very likely an undercount, given the nature of the population, and the how hard it is to kind of get data. Um, and let's see. While data, again, it's very limited given the nature of this population. But what we do know is that up to 25% of these individuals do have companion animals. Again, is an estimate, but we know that the number of individuals who are unhoused is growing, and we know that they are frequently unhoused or unsheltered with beloved companion animals that they are not willing to leave behind. And again, while all of us or most of us consider pets to be family members and to be a source of companionship and support, especially in crisis, this companionship might be especially um, important or more critical for people who are isolated and who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness as well. Okay. So this in also the National Alliance to End Homelessness in 2016, they did a survey that showed that about 22% of people who were experiencing homelessness reported that the reason they were unable to enter into a shelter was because they could not take their pet and that pets were not allowed in those shelters. So again, we can see how clearly this is a barrier for people and their pets. Many people choose to remain unhoused rather than relinquish custody or leave their pet behind when entering a shelter. Um, The most obvious way, of course, to address this is through the promotion of pet-friendly homeless shelters. And although support for those and funding for those have certainly increased in recent years, it is still a rarity, and most homeless shelters throughout the country do not allow pets on site. Oh, one of the things I added in here just because it was recently reintroduced in the last month, so is the PUP Act. It has been introduced previously, was just reintroduced by Representative Crow of Colorado in August, and is endorsed by most major human and animal welfare organizations at this point. It is bipartisan legislation that would create funding and resources for homeless shelters to become pet friendly. So if anyone here is familiar with the PAWS Act, it mirrors that to a degree in that it would establish a federal grant program that shelters and organizations could apply for to make their housing programs pet friendly. And it would also require them to have a number of other services that are pet related for the people that they're serving. Um, so, oh, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to let Val take over in just a second, but again, knowing what we do about the connection between domestic violence and homelessness, we decided last year to expand and make some pretty big changes to our directory, which is kind of what we wanted to share with you guys today. So I'm going to hand it over to Val to talk a little bit more about this piece specifically, and then I'll pop back to share some more resources.
Thank you, Claire, and hi everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm going to give a warning right now that I'm fighting a little bit of a cold. So if I start hacking up a lung, I'm going to mute myself. So it might happen. We'll see. I have some tea here, some cough drops, but just wanted to put that out there before we get started. But thank you for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you all today about our new directory for individuals experiencing homelessness with a pet, which we launched at the beginning of this year, which is crazy to say by now. So starting from the very beginning, why we actually decided to undertake this effort. A big reason was because of the data that Claire just shared. People are experiencing homelessness with pets, and the resources available to them are very limited and often hard to locate. We were also noticing an increase ourselves in the requests that we were receiving from individuals experiencing homelessness, and we were also having many conversations with trusted voices in our field who expressed a clear need for a safe haven directory tailored specifically to this population. So with all that put together, as well as the knowledge that we already had the existing infrastructure from our domestic violence directory, we made the decision to launch a new directory designed for individuals experiencing homelessness with a companion animal. Now, as you can probably imagine, starting a directory essentially from scratch was not a small effort. We really went state by state, reaching out to all of the appropriate contacts, and in many cases, actually just cold calling the shelters to ask about the kinds of resources they provide for pets, if any. So through that, we got some yeses. We also got a lot of no's. So we relied heavily on people from organizations like all of yours today. So connecting with the right people, asking them about the resources in their community that offer pet support, and then starting to document these programs state by state. And through these efforts, we were able to build something that not only fills this critical gap, but also supports the people and pets who need it using the infrastructure, like I mentioned, that we already have from our DV directory. Next slide, please. So this is what our homelessness directory looks like in map form. Right now, we have been able to add over 200 entries of homeless shelters, foster programs, outdoor sites, transitional living programs, all of which specifically serve people experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity with pets. So seeing it mapped out like this not only shows the resources that already exist, but also the areas where services are still very scarce. You know, you see these kind of big gaps where there's not any of those purple icons, which really helps us better understand where future efforts are most needed. So what do these listings look like in practice? We built our directory to capture all of the essential details for each listing. Claire went into this a little bit, and it's the same for our homelessness directory. So for every resource, we include the shelter or program name, phone number, any hotline, text lines, relevant phone lines, city and zip code information, as well as the agency type and the program details specific to the pet services that are actually being offered at that organization. We also will note any restrictions or requirements unique to that agency. So if there's a residency restriction or a, state residence only for service or county residence only, we notate that there as well. And the goal is just to give anyone using our directory a clear snapshot of the key information that they need so they can really quickly identify and connect with the best resource for their specific situation. So with that in mind, here's an example of what some of our directory cards, that's what we call them, kind of these squares, look like for our directory for the unhoused. So each card is designed to be really simple to read. You'll see agency type on the right side, the name, and the main contact details listed in the center of the card, and then below the program details, which will outline the type of pet services available. So as I'm sure most of you know, a common issue with directories of this kind is that they often sit idle and will become outdated over time, especially with the high rate of turnover that we often see in service and human service. So our directory is a living entity. I always like to say this. So it's something that's always subject to change and refinement. And we have a re-verification process to make sure that our directory remains up to date on an ongoing basis. So we check in via phone and email we try to on a yearly basis with each of our directory listings for both the DV directory and the directory for the unhoused. And we inquire with them directly about any updates to their service. And this gives us the ability to have an open conversation with staff from each of our listings and to get a better understanding of how they operate, as programs will vary so much from place to place. Perfect. So the types of resources that we have on our directory will really vary by location, like Claire mentioned. So they all will have the shared goal of supporting an individual's experiencing housing insecurity or homelessness with pets. So examples of what includes, and this is how our biggest difference from the domestic violence directory to the directory for the unhoused, because this is going to include some coordinated intake line for housing programs, so like a 211 line, homeless shelters that allow pets on site, of course, housing programs that partner with animal shelters, as well as some outdoor sites that offer pet resources. But it is not limited to that. There's a wide array of program types, directory listing types, I should say. Next slide, please. So I wanted to take some time to highlight some of our Safe Haven Spotlight organizations. So these are programs that we have identified that go above and beyond in services they are providing for people and pets. So this is the Bridge located in Dallas, Texas. This is a resource that strives to remove as many barriers as possible from someone getting the help that they need. So they are the only shelter for the unhoused in the Dallas area with an on-site kennel for pets, and they play a really important role in serving people who may be delaying entering a shelter to begin their recovery journey. So each dog owner at the Bridge will receive dry dog food, food and water bowls, dog beds and blankets, leashes, collars, harnesses, toys, bathing and grooming supplies, treats, enriching activities, vet care, behavioral training courses by a certified dog trainer, as well as they also have an artificial turf exercise yard and a grooming room with a full service dog washing tub. So they pretty much have it all. If you have a dog, you will be taken care of here. All types of resources. And I just want to also highlight the behavioral training is such an amazing resource to offer, because often pets that have gone through traumatic situations and also have experienced homelessness, they will oftentimes exhibit behavioral issues. So it's really amazing that they have that resource built in into the program already as kind of insurance for that fact that that does happen. So looking at another spotlighted organization listed on our directory, Hale Malioa is one of the most innovative specialty shelters in Hawaii. They actually use upcycled shipping containers to offer a temporary housing solution for clients working towards a permanent home. And these are pet friendly. So you can see them here in the photo on the slides. These are colorful shipping containers, and it's a really innovative solution. And it allows people to have privacy and allows them to bring their pets with them, which is amazing. So looking at this program here, this is Harmony Dog Rescue. This is a program that is and animal welfare specific programs. So, like we mentioned, we have so many different types of listings on our directory. Some of them will be kind of the more traditional pet-friendly shelter for the unhoused. But in some cases, it's actually a service that will only support the pets, but by supporting the pets, they're supporting the human as well. Harmony Dog Rescue provides temporary foster support for the pet, and this is for someone going through all types of things. So it could be homelessness, it could be domestic violence, it could be medical emergencies, etc. And they have a confidential network of foster homes throughout Western Pennsylvania, and they provide an alternative for people that would otherwise stay in dangerous situations because they do not want to get rid of their dogs. This one here is the Compassionate Village in Toledo. They offer a safe haven temporary foster program, so very similar to the Harmony Dog Rescue one. They offer families facing personal crises, domestic violence, sudden housing changes, military deployment, or homelessness the opportunity to place their pets in temporary foster care until they can bring them back with them. And they really have a great way they tailor each plan to each client's unique circumstances. So they really want to make sure that the pet owners will have peace of mind because often it is a very stressful experience to be separated from your pet, even if you know they're going to a safe foster home. So they have different programs in place to make sure that that is taken care of and the pet owner can be rest assured that their pet is in good hands.
Before we move on, I just
Yeah.
wanted to pop in really quickly and say, as Val mentioned, this is a living directory. And what she did not mention is that this is her living baby. And so, um, not something we could have done without her. She has quite literally talked to in depth with each and every one of these organizations, the hundreds and hundreds of organizations that are on this directory. And as we decided to undertake the addition of this housing directory in particular, has methodically called state by state, not just once, not just twice, but is on round three of trying to go state by state and capture any and every housing resource for people with pets. So just wanted to pop in and brag about Val a little bit because we really and truly could not do it without her. And, it is no surprise that you have lost your voice given how many people you have to contact and speak with constantly. So I'm
Oh,
sorry.
thank you, Claire. I appreciate that. But with that said, it's not a perfect science, right? We can do our best to check in as much as we possibly can. Obviously, we are a small staff, but we do the best we can to check in. But even when I'm doing the re-verification calls, the programs will change significantly. Even if I called them maybe less than a year ago, the program will completely change. So with that said, if you are taking a peek at our directory later today or anytime, and you notice something that's inaccurate or maybe not listed properly, or it doesn't resonate with what you know based on what you do in your community, please let us know. Would love to hear from you. You have our contact information. You can always just contact me directly. Just shoot me a quick email like, oh, actually, this is not right. Would love to get this fixed. And I would absolutely love to do that. So we really rely on you guys as well for this information because you guys are the ones doing the work. So it's a mutual relationship because you guys are the ones giving us all of this fabulous information. So, but thank you, Claire. I appreciate that. Okay, where are we? We have a question for you guys. So this is an interactive presentation, so we're not all just talking here. We wanted to ask about if you work in any type of human service, do you ask any questions about pets? And if so, what type of questions do you ask? So I just wanted to give you a few moments to share your thoughts in the chat. And even if you don't ask questions, that's great too. Please share and maybe why you don't, or if, yeah, anything you want to share, I'll just give you a few moments to do so. And we will kind of review that later. We don't necessarily have to talk about it right now, but just kind of wanted to put that in here.
And one of the reasons we always like, especially to ask an audience like this, is because we do know that about less than a third of human services individuals or professionals ask questions about pets routinely. I would suspect, based on your interest in participating in a Don't Forget the Pets webinar, that number may be a little bit higher here, but we know it's one of the most important pieces. The resources can only do so much good if we don't know that people need them, and if we don't ask about pets. So yes, we always love to hear who asks the questions and kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, and
Oh,
as I'm
wonderful.
seeing these
Thank you
come
guys so
through, it's
much.
awesome. Yeah, I'm loving these questions already. So we can move to the next slide because we have
Okay.
some more to share. Um, s-
Sorry, it's
oh
giving
no,
me
you're
problems. There we go.
So, at this time, studies have found that fewer than one-third of social service providers and advocates are asking questions about pets during their initial interviews. So, it really warms my heart, makes me so happy to see all of the chats coming in with the questions that you all do ask. But as I'm sure many of you know, asking these questions is critical. It allows us to better assess each person's situation, identify barriers, and ultimately increase the likelihood that someone will be able to access the shelter that they need. So we encourage providers to integrate simple questions into their intake process, such as, do you have a pet? Does anyone help care for that pet? Would you be willing to temporarily separate from your pet if needed? Do you currently have a safe place for your pet? And I think these questions really open the door to more honest conversations. They reduce the chance that someone will avoid service for fear of leaving their pet behind, and ultimately just help for a more inclusive care plan for that individual. Claire, I don't know if you have any comments or thoughts about any of the questions coming in, but they're all amazing from what I
They
see,
are.
right?
Yes.
So, moving on, when working with either survivors or unhoused individuals with pets, cross-house sector cross-sector collaboration is critical. So no single agency can meet all of those needs on its own, as I'm sure you all know, especially when pets are a part of the picture. It's complicated and a lot goes into it. So it really takes human services, animal welfare organizations, community partners, and other relevant stakeholders working together to create meaningful solutions to accommodate this need.
I just wanted to call out before we move too much some of those questions. I really appreciate. I was just going through a few more of them. One of the more recent comments was, "We don't ask, do you have pets? We ask, how many pets do you have?" And I love that. One of the things we talk about a lot is that sometimes if you ask some questions about pets without prefacing those questions with something like, we know pets are important and we strive to serve people and their pets, that sometimes people may not be honest because they feel like if they say, yes, I have a pet, they may not be able to access a service. So starting kind of with something that's a little more positively framed, starting with how many do you have, because we do know that the majority of people are going to have some sort of a household pet. I think that's a really lovely way to do that. So thank you all for all of those insights.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Claire. Um, So we wanted to talk today about community or coordinated community response teams. So CCR teams bring together key stakeholders to develop strategies for addressing homelessness in their specific communities. And membership will generally consist of social service providers, healthcare workers, school personnel, and we think that animal welfare professionals should be included in this as well. So we want to hear from you again because you're all sharing the most amazing things. Who are you collaborating with in your communities? Any partnerships or cross-sector connections that you have in supporting the work that you do, even if it's not specific to pets. But if it is specific to pets, that's great too. We would just love to hear any insight you have. And from there, I'll give it back to Claire.
Great. I'm going to give it just a second for some comments to
Yes.
come in. Yeah, we would especially be interested to know if you're on a human services, a CCR or a multidisciplinary team of any sort. Does your does your multidisciplinary team include someone from the animal welfare sector or animal control? And vice versa. If you're in the animal welfare world, do you have any partnerships in place, or do you have any members of your team that are kind of from either human services or school or other welfare organizations? So please feel free to put that in the chat as well. Okay, great. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about is, again, in order to make sure the people who need these resources can access these resources, we have to ask the questions and we have to work together as professionals across these lines. And one of the things that we have done to try and facilitate this cross-sector collaboration is developed a number of, this is just a quick snapshot of evidence-based tools that are designed to kind of help make it a little bit easier for us to work across those professional lines. So a number of our tools are specifically designed for human welfare individuals, and those are going to be things like our signs of animal abuse and neglect. So this is, for someone where animal abuse is outside of your typical purview, as a social worker, or a other sort of welfare worker, and you're in a home, you're working with a family, you are interacting with pets. How do you recognize abuse and neglect? How do you have conversations about that with the individuals in the home? And what do you do when you have these concerns? That's something for me, I know is this is a pet project of mine, because as someone who was in human services for a long time, I have absolutely been in that position doing in-home work and seeing signs of abuse and neglect, and knowing what I wanted to do about it, but not knowing what I was allowed to do about it, and going to my boss, who had been a social worker for over 30 years and couldn't really tell me what I was and was not allowed to do. So having some practical evidence-based guidance is definitely really important, from my perspective, at least. So we have developed a number of things. So in addition to screening tools, we have for human services professionals, here are a few of the other ones, guidance for how to ask kids about pets and pet abuse, suggested questions, conversation starters. And then screening for symptoms and concerns related to children witnessing abuse as well. We also have here on the right is an example of our safety planning tool. This is also specific for human services providers, and is really designed to kind of think about pet-related safety considerations and to be incorporated as a supplement to the traditional safety planning tools that many caseworkers use. In addition to these that are kind of focused on the human services side of things, we have several that are designed specifically for animal welfare organizations. So for vets, for animal welfare professionals, especially for animal control or humane law enforcement who might be going into homes, responding to animal cruelty calls. We have a number of tools designed to help recognize signs of domestic violence, help recognize signs of child abuse, and help recognize signs of elder abuse, because we know these things are happening in the same homes. And as someone who is working with a family who is showing signs of stress and of crisis, we can all do our jobs a little bit better if we can at least recognize red flags. We don't have to be experts, but we can recognize red flags and we can know who to refer to or to report to make sure that the families and the pets are getting the best services and most appropriate services needed, and get the interventions in place sooner rather than later. The QR code here at the bottom, please feel free to scan. What I will say is that all of our tools that everything is free, downloadable, fillable, available on our website in both English and Spanish. We also have the ability to translate into essentially any other language you need. So please, I'll throw our contact information up at the end again. But please, if there's something that you need translated, one of these tools into another language, just reach out and we're always happy to do that. We want to make it as accessible as possible. We also offer a number of resources. So this is just a glimpse at our Safe Havens for Pets website. you'll see the homepage, as well as the tab here is specific to the directory. That is obviously the biggest function of this website, is to be able to go on to search, to find those safe havens for anybody you're working with who might be experiencing homelessness or might be experiencing domestic violence. But we also have a lot of other resources on here as well. So we have a section that has various grant opportunities. If you are someone who works for a housing insecurity group or for a homeless shelter or for a domestic violence shelter, what are those funding opportunities that might be available to you to make your facilities or your programs a little more pet friendly? We also have a number of other resources, reports, some research that we have done, kind of looking at this overlap between interpersonal violence and animal cruelty, and a number of other ways for professionals to get the support that they need and to get involved in kind of making these services, both for people experiencing homelessness and for people experiencing domestic violence, truly more pet friendly. Um, Again, there's that QR code in case anybody needs that. I am going to touch just very quickly on some additional resources. Obviously, we are here with Red Rover, one of our favorite resources of all. So I think this is also a really good time to shout out Red Rover for encouraging us as we were planning this directory expansion, and also being willing, both My Dog Is My Home and Red Rover, you guys were wonderful and willing to take a look at this directory before we made it public facing, to give feedback, to make sure, again, that it was serving the intended purpose is really important to us. And Red Rover was really gracious in giving some wonderful feedback as well. So Red Rover, obviously, and Danielle, feel free to pop in here. But with the grants that are offered for domestic violence shelters, traditionally, in the last 2 years, there's been the addition of the grant opportunities for people in homeless shelters wanting to make homeless shelters pet friendly as well, correct? And I think that is still ongoing.
Yes, thanks, Claire. So Claire, everyone is referring to our Red Rover Safe Housing Grant, which does offer up to $60,000 in grant funds. Historically, that grant has really been a grant specifically for domestic violence shelters, but we were very fortunate enough that the last 2 years we were able to open that grant opportunity up to homeless shelters as well. And we are very, very hopeful that we will be able to do the same thing again next year in 2026. So please keep a close eye on our grants page. My colleague Tia has shared that link in the chat. So take a look. And if it's something that you might be interested in, please don't hesitate to reach out to us with more questions. We would love to help make that happen for your shelter.
Yes, I always recommend, not only because of the funding opportunities, but because of the practical assistance that you guys provide for actually implementing these changes once that funding is in place. I think is really critical and makes it a lot easier for providers to get these pet-friendly shelters in place. So My Dog Is My Home, I mentioned as well. Also, we're incredibly helpful in kind of our work to review and get this directory out there. Really leaders in this area of pet inclusive housing concerns, and especially for people experiencing homelessness with pets. They offer a lot of wonderful training and technical assistance, especially for homeless shelter programs or advocates looking to better accommodate individuals with pets and help their people and pets stay together. So highly recommend their resources. And then Greater Good Charities, who work obviously with Red Rover on Don't Forget the Pets, but also offer through their Rescue Rebuild program some really wonderful, again, funding, but also on the ground assistance for groups that are trying to become more pet friendly, especially for shelters trying to become more pet friendly. I think that is all we had, but wanted to leave some time for questions, conversations. Again, we're going to go back through the chat, but would love to hear a little bit more from participants about your experiences and what this has looked like for you, and kind of whether that's successes or challenges that you've encountered.
Well, thank you so much, Claire and Val. We're so excited to get to some questions, but that was a wonderful presentation, and we're so grateful to have had you both with us today. So please go ahead, everyone, and feel free to enter questions in the chat, or feel free to unmute your mic if you'd like to ask your question live. We do already have a few questions in the chat that I would love to go over for you all. First question is from Dawn, which is a great question and one that we get a lot, Dawn. So you're not alone. How do we sell this concept to our executive directors and the board?
Oh, thank you for asking, Dawn. A fabulous question. Um, okay, so a number of different things to talk about there, but I'll try and keep it quick. Um, One of the things is, I think this can be framed in a number of ways, right? What does your organization, your board, the individuals you need to convince and get buy-in from, what do they care about most? Because, we want people to care about animals because they care about animals. But by tying this to the human welfare issues, to safety concerns, whatever it is that those individuals care most about and relate most to, I think because we know these connections are so strong, you can really frame it delicately to speak to what their biggest concerns are and what their biggest passions are. The other piece certainly is that this can be a fundraising tool as well, because you are, by kind of crossing these lines, you are kind of opening up to another audience. Again, especially for human services organizations, we know funding is hard for everyone all the time, and right now especially, but we know that people love a fundraiser with a picture of a kitten. They just do. So this is one thing that, like, one way to kind of tap into another donor base at times. Also another way to tap into another volunteer base, right? So, we have domestic violence shelters on our directory who have been able to develop internal volunteer programs that have allowed them to kind of tap into this unique group of individuals who might not have volunteered originally for a humane society necessarily. They like animals fine. It's not their thing. They wouldn't have gone out of their way, but their thing is supporting people experiencing domestic violence. Their passion is supporting survivors, and they are on board to help in this way. And so they've been able to tap into this kind of previously untapped volunteer pool for them. So I think kind of diversifying volunteers, diversifying funding is always something to think about. The other thing I will say too is, so all of our resources, everything is free. That also includes trainings. And so we always offer and make ourselves available if you do need some help with buy-in. We're always happy to do a presentation for a board meeting, or to come in and do a webinar for volunteers. If there's anything we can do to help you get that buy-in, we would love to do that, and we will always make ourselves available, and always happy to do those things for free as well. So if there are specific opportunities, please reach out about that, and we'd be happy to help if we can.
That's amazing. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, Maggie, I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, Claire spoke at
Hi, Maggie.
TCA Hi Guys grantee for, at the time, 36 DV or DV associated shelters across the country. And they came and spoke to our convening that we had with them in May, and it was amazing. And I finally got the videos edited of it. But I just wanted to tell you that we, as both as an organization that partners with domestic violence shelters to accept animals, and as the grantee, the resources that AWI has allowed us to use and share. Same with Red Rover. Don't forget the pets. Greater Good. Don't forget the pets. Greater Good. We're also at our convening. Um, you guys, these are some of the greatest things out there. And you just have to think, what, how do we do this? We just got to do it. It's, the statistics are staggering. And as we all saw, use those statistics to build your case for analytical people. Um, and if you do it, promote the pets.
Mhm.
People have become numb to human suffering, but not to animal suffering, and it makes a difference. So that's all I want to say.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maggie, and I appreciate that. And that brings me to like one of my biggest things is that if ever we can help people avoid having to reinvent the wheel, that is our goal. And I know Red Rover has been wonderful about that as well. Yeah, you can take our materials, you can put your branding on it. We just want to make it easy. So please, if there are ways that we can help you to kind of not have to start from scratch, that is definitely the goal.
Absolutely. Great questions, everyone. Wonderful question from Veda that I think we could spend an hour answering, Veda. But Veda says, we are opening our first shelter in Connecticut this year. Any tips for us?
Oh my. That you're right. We could spend, if there are any specific areas you're looking in for tips in, but one of the things I would say is knowing your community partners, identifying your community partners, and thinking creatively about your community partners as well. There's again something that can help you save time and keep you from having to reinvent the wheel is getting those partnerships in place with vet schools can be a wonderful resource, borders, groups like, troops, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all of these organizations that have service components that are looking for projects, are looking for ways to help. I definitely, would encourage thinking through kind of unique volunteer opportunities because, again, this is a unique way to tap into volunteers who have kind of this dual passion as well. I don't really know where to start because we could talk so long, but that would be my initial thing is to I think you problem solve ahead of time. You have policies and procedures in place. You also have to be willing to be flexible because some of these things, right, on paper, it's not until we start up services and we get going that, needs change and sometimes programs have to change with those needs. And so being flexible, but knowing your resources, knowing your partners or your people who are sympathetic in the community and can help when those kind of odd problems pop up that maybe you're not, you don't have the internal resources to handle yourself. I think those are really critical. I don't know if Danielle or Val or Maggie too, if you have any like specific tips to add.
What came to my mind was just don't be afraid to ask for help. There's so many great
Yes.
organizations out there that are always willing and able to do a training or hold a webinar. Um, so I think just any problem that you confront, there's usually, hopefully, a solution or an organization that knows the solution and can point you in the right direction.
Yes.
So that would be my
And
advice, and
that's a
just in
good
general.
point. We know that from the directory itself. We know, my gosh, the way that people and groups have found to make this work, there are so many unique and odd and interesting and wonderful
Yeah.
solutions that people have come up with. So yes. And that's something too. We have a closed Facebook group for organizations that are doing this specifically, so you can put out and please, reach out. We're happy to invite you to those kind of things so that you can put those weird and random questions out there to other individuals across the country who are doing this work, and get advice from those who've faced it before and have come up with those creative solutions to. I'm sure there's always someone out there who is, again, we talk about one of our favorite safe havens is specific to pigs. And like you might not think these things are out there, but they are. There's a safe haven specifically that specializes in fostering pigs of survivors. So if there's an issue that comes up, there is someone out there doing the work who can give good advice.
I put a link in the chat to Happy, Healthy, and Safe. Um, she's an amazing person, and she's got a really good network, and she's helped out a couple of our grantees. And I think the mindset is, and there's so many people out there with the like mindset is, we can remove this barrier, and what do we do to need to make this happen? And
It's a solvable
asking
problem.
asking for help is absolutely the thing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great answers all. And as a final thing, I will add that through our Don't Forget the Pets program, Veda, we do have a free one-on-one coaching program that you are more than welcome to join because as Claire and Maggie and everyone shared, which is so true, every shelter is unique. Every community is unique. The resources available to you are going to be unique. And so that is a great space to get very specific recommendations and guidance from our team of experts. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can find that program on our website. We can also drop the link in the chat.
And I can speak to, I do know people who've gone through that coaching program and speak so highly of it. So I think that's a really great resource.
Thank you, Claire. That's so kind. Another great question here, similar but a little bit different. What are some examples of how to make a DV shelter pet friendly? I have heard of some shelters making kennels for dogs and cats in another building. Do pets live in the rooms with survivors? How do we make it compliant to other grants of domestic violence that support the shelter? Would Red Rover be able to support with these questions? Short answer, yes, we can absolutely help with all of those questions. And that's another great use of our coaching program. But we definitely like to hear from Claire and Val as well.
Yeah, again, not a good short answer for that because I've seen it done a million ways, right? But I think that whoever asked that question is right. You know, some of the most common are either in room or separate kennels that are. We've also seen a number that have like transitional living apartments that are pet friendly, things like that. And we've seen a lot of places where they will start with maybe one pet friendly room, but eventually move towards having everything pet friendly, with the exception of a couple. They have the majority, but have some things for those who maybe have concerns that are not easily managed, that have some space that is off limits to those pets. We've seen organizations that have direct runs that are built like just tiny little. Have you guys seen like a catio for instance? Those kind of, it's chicken wire and all and wood and stuff, and you can do them from like little exterior outdoor windows or escape things. We've seen places that have those for individual rooms within a shelter that just have this teeny little space that is available for the animal to go outside, even from like the window of the shelter room. So again, there are just so many different ways that it can be done. I know, Don't Forget the Pets, the training handbook has a lot of really interesting examples of how to do that. I also know Greater Goods charities will help with like design pieces too, and kind of thinking through the architectural considerations as well. I think a lot of, one of the other ways we've seen it done for someone who couldn't make their space, all their rooms and sites pet friendly, because of a number of concerns that they had with like the space they were housed in at the time. But what they did do is they made a safe space, like a holding space. So they had a pet safe room so that they could at least alleviate that immediate barrier of, we don't want people to not come to shelter because they can't bring their pets. So there was one pet safe space that survivors could come to shelter with their pets. They had somewhere to keep them safe, stable. They had the supplies for, a weekend if they needed it. And then their partners in the community, the animal shelter they worked with, had committed to coming and getting those animals and getting them into foster and everything like that. So again, even if you can't do every room, having a pet safe space is somewhere to start and to like address that barrier of people hesitating to come to shelter.
Thank you, Claire. Well, we are coming up on time, everyone, but I think we have time for one more question. This is a question from Barbara. Barbara says, I'm still figuring out how to make a difference. I learned that there were no shelters that help pets in our state when I called our governor's office. They gave me old, outdated information. How can we help get your information to places that need it most?
Oh, thank you. We really appreciate that. One is that we are always happy. You can reach out. We're happy to send. We have like safe havens, cards with QR codes for locating stuff. Those are always great to like spread and to pass along to the shelters that you interact with, the animal shelters, the vet's offices. Because again, we do take a lot of care to make sure that this is all up to date, but if it's not getting to the people who need it, and if shelters don't know these resources exist, then that's a problem for everyone, right? So we're always happy to send materials for you guys to share. And I do think if there aren't shelters in your area, you can think creatively about other ways to make a difference. One of the biggest things that we see is transportation concerns for rural areas that maybe there's not a pet-friendly space in within a close distance, but there is one, 100 miles away or something like that, or there are programs available. So we often get survivors being like, we know there's one in our state, but we can't get there, or we can't get the pet there. There's someone is available to take them into foster. Reaching out to your local domestic violence shelters, even if they don't have, if they aren't pet friendly yet, we say. Um, um, and making yourself available as, I do that sometimes too. That I do transport volunteer stuff where I'll go pick up a kennel of dogs or cats and I will do some transportation. So thinking a little bit creatively about it. If there's not something directly in your community, are there maybe other ways that you could help connect people outside of your community? And maybe that's transportation, maybe that's donation, volunteer time, things like that. But yes, please, if there's ever any information that you need, we would happily send you guys materials to share and spread the word because that would be helpful for us as well.
We have flyers, business cards, all the things.
All the
So
things, yes.
please let us know if you want them. We will send them to you.
Amazing. That's perfect. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. And especially thank you so very much to Claire and to Val for an incredible presentation and for answering so many questions. We are so grateful to have had you guys with us today. I know there were some lingering questions in the chat that we weren't able to get to, but please feel free to reach out to us via email. And I think I can say that on behalf
Yes.
of Claire and Val as well.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having us and for all the great questions. I think we want this all to be as helpful and relevant as possible for you. So yes, and Val and we are a small team. So if you reach out, you can reach out to us directly. If you go onto the Safe Havens website and you reach out to like the Safe Havens number or the Safe Havens email, you're gonna get Val and I anyway. So
It's
it is
us.
easy to get us. We're a small team, but please, we're happy to help directly in any way we can and answer as many
Absolutely.
questions as you have.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys again so much
Thank you.
Thank
all that
you.
joined us. We hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.